Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Lissa. Thanks so much for wanting to have this conversation today.
Oh,
I'm super
it's a very
excited.
important one.
Absolutely. And I thought right off the bat, I'd ask you, how did you first realize that restrictive eating isn't for you, that eating enough is what it's all about?
Well, that's a great question because I have in the past, in like most of my adult life until I went raw, I was always stuck in diet culture. So I thought that you had to undereat in order to lose weight. I thought you needed to eat less, eat your BMR, and I did that multiple times in my life. And yeah, I did lose weight, but my skin was really saggy. I had lots and lots and lots of cravings. I had more joint pain. I felt really tired, even though I like forced myself in the gym. And I just didn't enjoy under eating. It just was not working for me. And I noticed that a lot of my symptoms, like the standard stuff that I was experiencing, were worse when I was under eating. And then when I went raw in 2014, I quickly learned that I needed to eat enough because with raw food, because it's so low in calorie density, I had to eat so much more in order to get enough calories. And I was always super scared of eating over 2,000 calories. But this round, I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to eat as much raw food as I possibly can and just fuel my body. Like I wasn't even focused on weight loss. I was like, I'm just going to be healthy. That was my main goal, was to be healthy. So I started eating over 2,000 calories. I was eating roughly around 2,100 to 2,300 calories a day, and I lost weight. I was losing weight effortlessly. It just melted right off. And also, I noticed that my skin was so much nicer when I was eating enough, like so that my body had enough, calories and nutrition and everything to build the muscles and build the collagen and everything. So it was so much nicer to eat enough. And on top of that, I actually was able to stick to raw because I was eating enough. So I wasn't always hungry. And when you're hungry, you get cravings. So you're going to crave what you habitually always ate. And those went away slowly I want to say cravings went away. Cravings don't usually go away. They just change because now when I'm hungry, I crave a smoothie or I crave a salad or I crave raw sushi or something like that. The cravings change when you change your habits. So that's what I noticed with myself, and it's so much better eating to feel full. Mhm.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. And I've made a very similar experience that I think we're here to eat. Like, that's one of the pleasures of life.
Mhm.
And it just makes no sense to wanting to deprive yourself from that. So I want to ask you, do you ever feel like, or have you ever had a time during your raw journey where you were maybe falling back into that pattern of you need to restrict, you need to eat less, or do you feel like the moment you went raw? Because I think that is the beauty of the lifestyle. You actually release weight even when you're eating a lot and you're eating enough calories because the body also, the lymphatic system helps drain out a lot of toxins and excess sodium retention and all of that. But still, did you ever have a time where you feel like you were maybe falling back a little bit into that old pattern on raw?
Yeah, I don't feel like I did go back to any of those kinds of things, but I do notice that sometimes old patterns are in my head. Like sometimes I'll think that, and it gets less and less and less the longer I do this. But in the beginning, it's all the belief system, right? Like we've been taught to undereat, we've been taught to restrict, and the less is more or something, right? Like we're taught to undereat, and it's because of all the foods that society is eating, so that all of these rules have come to be because of what everyone eats in general, like junk food and animal products and oils. Like if you're eating those kinds of foods, then people start to say like, oh, you have to restrict, you can't eat that much or whatever. But the rules don't apply for a raw diet because we're eating the food that we were naturally made to eat, and we can eat an abundance of it. obviously focusing on low fat, eating plenty of fruit and vegetables, and it's so much easier. So when I first went raw, it was harder to like keep up that habit of like, it's okay to eat, it's okay to eat, it's okay to eat 2,000 calories. I had to tell it to myself a lot because had that solid belief system for decades. So our belief systems change when we change how we think about stuff and when we are consistent with it. So what happened with me was once I started eating enough, I noticed right away that I didn't have the cravings I used to, and I felt satiated. I felt full, I felt happy, I felt vibrant, I had more energy and all this stuff because I was giving my body what I needed. So then it made sense to me. I was like, okay, I need to eat enough. This is a good thing. So that reinforced my new patterns. And as I moved through time, come to today, I don't even think about that anymore because it just doesn't make sense. It actually is kind of like the opposite. If you undereat, your body goes into storage mode and famine mode, and that can actually cause issues. So it's definitely been a shift. But after I went raw and I realized I needed to eat enough, that was pretty much the end of it. And then it was just consistency to reprogram those old beliefs.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. And you mentioned like when you're not eating enough, do you ever have a time where you're maybe a little bit undercaloried and you feel like, oh, maybe today was too busy? And how do you deal with that when you feel like because there's so much going on, you maybe miss eating? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all human, and that happens.
Right.
I mean, even during this bundle, sometimes I've been live, like on the first day I was live for like 8 hours straight live. And I think I missed lunch on that day, so I was like super hungry at dinner time. But I don't stress too much about those specific days because it's not all the time. We strive to make sure that we eat enough every single day. But yeah, there are those days where, things are too busy and you notice. But in those times, because I have built such a strong habit and such a strong reality with raw food that when it does come time to dinner and I am really hungry, I don't crave what I used to. I'm like, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get a huge, fresh, hydrating salad. That's like the highlight of my day. I'm so excited for that. And it's really interesting because when I first went raw, I never thought that was going to be a thing. I thought I was going to crave Chinese food and pizza and Doritos for the rest of my life. But with consistency, with change, I don't even think about those foods anymore, unless I'm talking about them like this, right? I'll be like, oh yeah, Doritos used to exist. Like you forget these foods or even part of your life because you've changed so much. And so now when I am hungry, when it's been too long since I've eaten, I immediately think of making a salad. And I see a question in the chat, is eating raw a lot more time consuming? I've been a few of your recipe demos and it's overwhelming. So I personally don't feel that it's a lot. If somebody feels overwhelmed, and what I feel helps people is to go one line at a time. They're only overwhelming because it's new, not because you're not capable. So you're totally capable of making the raw recipes. It just takes time and practice. And since I've been doing this for so long, since I've been choosing it, in the beginning it was more challenging. Like I needed to learn how to chop veggies faster. I had to learn how to arrange my day so I could get the meals in. But now that I do it, and now that I put the time in, and I overcame that overwhelm by putting myself in the situation to feel overwhelmed, I now can make those meals. Like we can make 2 huge giant salads in like 15, maybe 18 minutes with a blended dressing. And that's for Nate and I. And they're huge salads. And we can do it now so fast because we've been doing it for so long. But you have to start somewhere and you have to actually start doing it, but go line by line. If you see a recipe and it looks like it's a lot, just do one step at a time. Number 1, put the dates in the blender. Number 2, put the garlic in the blender. Or if you're making the raw sushi, peel the carrots. That's all you have to focus on, is just one step at a time. Peel the carrots. Then you wet chop the carrots. Then you squeeze the water out of the carrots. Like just do one step at a time, and it gets a lot easier the more you practice. So the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Mhm. That was nicely said. Yeah, that reminds me of the quote, chop wood, carry water. Like just doing the same thing over and over again. And once you got that routine dialed in, like I'm sure you can relate, I eat the same like 3 to 5 meals pretty much every day. And then there are maybe some occasions where I put something new in, into my routine. But usually it's the same. And I actually find myself eating fully raw. Like I'm still alternating between high raw and fully raw. And the fully raw days are always the days where I have a lot of stuff going on, where I'm very busy. I have different appointments going on because, like, literally, I just started prepping my salad for tonight's dinner half an hour before our live. And then I ate it for like 10 minutes. And if it was like a cooked meal, I would have had to calculate a lot more time for that meal. So, yeah, I think it's all about the consistency and getting that new routine in, which in the beginning is going to feel uncomfortable, but then eventually you will have it dialed in.
Yeah, it's like learning a new language, right? It's going to be challenging in the beginning. You're not going to understand pretty much anything anyone says. But as you learn words and as you practice the words and as you speak the words and as you add them into different sentences and then start with new words, slowly over time, you're going to get better at speaking that language. And the same goes for a new diet or a new recipe. You've got to start slow and be gentle with yourself because yes, it's a new skill that you're learning, a different way of preparing food. But the more you prep, the more you plan, the more you practice, the better you get at it. And yeah, I agree with you. Like we have some recipe, we have lots in our like fallback because we have so many recipes that we absolutely love. But like raw soups or curries or different salads and salad dressings and smoothies that we love that we know, we've made them so many times, we have them memorized. So we just go in the kitchen and just do it. But it took time to memorize them, right? So there's a learning period there, and it's okay.
Mhm. What would you say is like your go-to meal when you're feeling a bit undercaloried? Like, what's your
So
favorite?
number one is always fruit because that is the easiest, simplest, fastest thing to eat. So grabbing some fruit, just sometimes I'll just go in the kitchen and peel some bananas. I also like to eat cherry tomatoes too. Sometimes I know they're not as high calorie, but they are kind of nice if you're feeling something a little more savory. The tomatoes are really nice. But yeah, I'll just go in the kitchen and peel some bananas and eat those. Smoothies are also really fast and easy ways to get more calories in because you can fit like, I don't even know, like 600 to, I've seen Chris Kendall put like 1,000 or 1,200 calories in his smoothies. So, those are easy ways to get more calories in, especially if you're working and you're busy and you can just drink something. That's a lot easier too. And so my go-to salad dressing that I ate pretty much every single day when I first went raw, it was on the menu almost every day, was my French dressing. So I would chop up a big salad, whatever ingredients I had, and then I would blend 5 dates, 2 cloves of garlic, the juice of a lemon, a little apple cider vinegar, some smoked paprika, about half a teaspoon smoked paprika, eighth of a teaspoon of chipotle powder, and then I put maybe a cup of water in there and blend it. And that was, I still to this day absolutely love that dressing. That's like my favorite. Easy, simple, fast dressing that I make often because it is so easy. And we always have garlic, we always have dates, we always have apple cider vinegar and lemons hanging around, we always have the spices. So I can make that dressing anytime. We always have what we need to make it. So it makes it easier when you have decision fatigue and you're just like, I don't even, like, you can't even think of what you want to have. It's nice to have those default recipes that you can just be like, oh, I already know how to make that. I don't have to follow a recipe. I just go in the kitchen, chop, blend, done, right?
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, that actually sounds very similar to the dressing that I just had. The only thing I also add is like some hemp seeds
Yeah.
to get like some healthy fats in. So yeah, what do you think about society beauty standards? And yeah, like because I think that is a cause of a lot of people fearing eating enough because there are a lot of standards of how, especially for us women, our body should look. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because society places so much emphasis on how we look. And I mean, I'm 45 now and my body is fluctuating, you know, how it is. Every human being fluctuates. We're never perfect, you know, we are imperfectly perfect. So learning to love ourselves at any stage, at any body shape, at any age, how we look, anything like that is very important because when we love ourselves first, we then put loving foods in because we're not, there's a difference between eating healthy in order to love ourselves or loving ourselves and then eating healthy because we love ourselves. So I found like earlier in my early years, I was always reaching for the perfect body. I was always wanting to lose weight and I was always forcing myself into a box. And I was also feeling bad that I wasn't there yet or I didn't look how I wanted to look or whatever it was. And that caused a lot of stress on me. And, you know, it's a stress that we don't need, especially as women and men too. Men suffer it as well because they're not big enough or they're not, you know, muscular enough or whatever it is. And this can cause disordered eating patterns and body dysmorphia. So a lot of times people will lose a lot of weight, and even when they get to their ideal weight, the weight that they dreamt of, when they get to that weight, they still don't think that they are beautiful enough because they haven't worked on their own self-love. And when you get to that weight, sometimes people will think, I still need to lose more because I'm not at that my goal yet, but they are, and they look awesome. But to them, they don't feel like they do. And this is where body dysmorphia starts to happen, because they don't have that internal self-love regardless of their weight. And obviously, you know, losing weight is healthy, right? If we need to lose excess pounds, it's important to do that so that our body works properly, but not to do it in order to have self-love. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like so many people grasp to it to feel accepted, to feel loved, to feel attractive, to feel wanted. All of these things, people are doing it almost for the wrong reasons, for society's reasons, instead of doing it because they love themselves. Because they love themselves, they eat properly. Because they love themselves, they move their body. Because they love themselves, they go to bed early. And because they love themselves, they practice healthy things. And then the body just goes to where it wants to go because you're doing all these loving things to your body, and it becomes so much less of a struggle to get to your goals, for example. So those are kind of my thoughts on it.
Wow. It really touched me what you just said. Thank you so much for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
And yeah, it's
Hmm.
so wonderful because, yeah, like if we are resisting the way our body is right now, that inner resistance is going to make it really hard to make these positive changes. So when we come from a place of love, everything will become effortless. And yes, it might still feel uncomfortable at first, but it's going to be an inspired action. So I want to ask you, Lissa, do you feel like you've ever had a moment in your life where you maybe struggled with body dysmorphia? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, when I was doing a lot of the calorie restriction, back in the day, because the only time that I was like the ideal body type for me was after I went raw. So before raw, I always struggled with my weight. I would always go on diets, and I tried all kinds of things. I tried raw vegan diet like 100 times, and I was always doing high fat. I was not eating enough calories. I was always restricting because I believed that we needed to do that. So my skin would get really saggy. I would always feel really tired. And even though I would lose weight, I would be like, why do I have to go through all of this frustration and pain and cravings and hunger in order to lose weight? Like, it shouldn't be this difficult, right? You know, so I hadn't changed the foundation of what I was eating every day. I was still eating animal products. I was still eating healthy fats and lots of oils. I wasn't eating enough fresh produce, but I was always calorie restrict. And yes, I would lose some weight, but I would never be happy with myself because I would never get to that level, and I would not feel comfortable in my body. I would have tons of joint pain. I had severe cystic acne, and every time that I would go on a restrictive diet, I would get worse acne. My joint pain would be inflamed, and I'd get, you know, tons of digestive issues. And I would have loads of cravings, and I just wasn't enjoying my life for one, but I also didn't like where I was. So I feel like after I went raw and I started eating enough and I released the need to focus on losing weight or healing things too is another one too. Like sometimes people come in looking to heal certain things and that's their main focus and they zone in on it and that's all they think about. And they forget that you're just doing this to support your body and your body's going to do whatever it wants to do, or whatever it can do based on what you provide it. So because I was hyper super focused on weight loss, that became my whole world. And I wasn't able to enjoy other areas of my life because I was so focused on losing weight. But eventually, when I went raw, I released that. I was like, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I'm like tired of trying to lose weight. And so I just was focusing on whole body health. I was like, I just want to be healthy. I don't care if I lose weight. I don't care if my acne goes away. I don't care if any of that. I just want to focus on supporting my body the best I can and eating food in its cleanest form and abundantly. And I just want to enjoy food. I don't want to have to be restrictive and have that hyper focus on that one thing. So after that, it was like the weight just disappeared. I was like, I didn't necessarily, I mean, I kind of thought that I might lose weight on a raw diet, but I was surprised that it was so effortless. And my whole focus was on whole body health. I was like, I need to support my body the best I can because it wasn't just the weight that I had. It was like the acne and the joint pain and the hormones and the gut dysbiosis and the candida overgrowth. And I had so many other things that were happening in my life, and the weight was just one of those things that I would hyper focus on. So releasing that was totally pure freedom, and it was so much easier.
Wow.
Mm.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, to summarize it, I guess what really helped you was to start working with your body and the obsession and the focus on the one thing, like the weight loss or healing this or healing that, but just looking at your body as a whole and also getting excited about eating enough.
Yes, yes, I know it was so nice because I love to eat. Like you do too, right? It's like we love eating and it's so nice. And I didn't want to restrict myself anymore. I wanted to enjoy so much. And I see in the chat someone's asking why raw instead of whole food plant-based. I think whole food plant-based is a great place for people to be, and including more and more and more raw. That's like my whole goal is to help people embrace and enjoy more raw. Whether you go all raw or not doesn't really matter. It's about where you want to go. If you want to try all raw and you feel amazing on it, like you said you do on your busy days, you're all raw, and that's great. I never did a whole food plant-based style diet. I went directly into raw because it made the most sense to me. It resonated with me because I wanted to eat foods in their living form. And that, like the whole food plant-based foods, like weren't as attractive to me. I prefer having a big salad. I prefer the hydration. I was never a fan of like really hot soups and stuff like that. Like I'd always, when I was little, I'd let them cool to room temperature anyways. So I didn't really fully enjoy it. So, unless it was takeout junk food, of course, that's going to be a huge dopamine hit. But even if it was hot, I would still let it cool down so that I could actually enjoy it. But yeah, I never did the whole food plant-based thing, and I'm sure that that would have been fine. But I feel so amazing on raw, and I want raw. That's what I want. And it's like people say, like, why don't you eat whatever you want? And I'm like, I do eat whatever I want. It just so happens to be raw food. So I enjoy eating raw and I enjoy eating in such an abundance of it. So that makes it so much easier when you love the food you're eating.
Yeah. When you eat the foods you love the most that love you back just as much. And yeah, I've made a similar experience that raw food loves me back the very, very most.
Mhm.
And whole foods also love me back, but raw food loves me back the most. So obviously,
Exactly.
we gravitate more towards that. But I think to each their own, and whatever feels most comfortable and brings most joy to one's heart
Mhm.
is important to follow. And I have one last question for
Yeah.
you before I'll let you go, but before that, I also want to mention quickly that the bundle is going on. So for everyone who wants to get the bundle, grab it either through Lissa's link in bio or through my link in bio. I also have a brand new book called Slimming Secrets, where I share all my secrets that helped me to release over 40 pounds through raw foods, and yeah, so many other cool changes that I made in my life. So if you want to find out more about that, you can check out the link. There's a landing page where you can read through everything you get for only $50. And my last question that I ask every guest that comes onto my channel is if you could travel back in time to the Lissa that was struggling to eat enough, that felt like she needs to participate in that diet culture. If you could travel back in time and meet her and give her three advice, what would those three advice
Oh,
be?
that's such a good question. It's interesting that you asked that question because on my email list, if people are on my email list, I did something for this bundle. So every single day I did a different one. They're called Letters to Lissa. And every single day I had a different topic and I wrote myself from back then a letter talking about certain things and encouraging her and stuff. So it's really cool that you asked that question because I was doing those letters to Lissa. So three pieces of advice. The first one, I would say trust. Trust that you are safe to eat enough. Trust that you're going to feel amazing. Trust that you're going to feel satiated. Trust that you're going to support your body. Trust that a low-fat diet is not going to hurt you. Because I was so scared of doing a low-fat diet. I thought I was going to, be deficient in something. But I was like, once I learned about the low-fat and why, let's focus on the healthy fats like omega-3s and stuff. But low-fat was the way to go for me. And I would tell her to trust it and to just release the fear that you have around eating enough and eating low fat and eating more fruit. I was so scared of sugar back then too because I had candida and I dealt with candida overgrowth for over 15 years. And I was constantly indoctrinated to be scared of sugar because sugar feeds yeast, right? But when I went raw, I ate a lot of sugar and I ate mushrooms and nutritional yeast and all the things that they say you shouldn't eat when you have candida. My candida went away, but it was because I built my microbiome with the fiber variety that I was eating on raw and because I was consistent, right? I wasn't eating all those other foods that were feeding other bacteria. Then the second piece of advice, I would say, go slow and focus one day at a time. So when I started, and I'm sure a lot of people feel like this when they first start, they see somebody who's been raw for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or whatever. And they're like, whoa, like that's a lot. Or even 3 months. I thought 3 months was a long time to go raw. When you're in that kind of a position where you're eating all those other foods, you're like, whoa, 3 months is a long time. But I would tell myself to not focus on how long you're going to be raw. Just focus on one day at a time. So today you are going to be raw. Just today, and that's it. Just focus on today. And then when you wake up tomorrow, you'll just do the same thing over again. And eventually, you'll stack on the days that you've been raw. But to not stress so much about staying raw for forever. Because forever, like if we say like, I'll have cooked food or I'll have whatever some other time, some other time might never come, right? So if we can procrastinate on the junk food or the other food that we don't want to be eating anymore, just say another time I'll have that. That releases the stress or the fear of never, because that can actually stop people from doing it because they are scared of never. And that's totally normal. There's a lot of people who do fear that. They're like, oh, I could never have pasta again. And that, it feels uncomfortable. Instead of saying never, say another time I'll have pasta. And another time might never come, but today I focus on raw food. The third thing I would tell her would be to be consistent. Be consistent with your planning, be consistent with your scheduling, schedule yourself in and show up for yourself is so important. Like we show up for everyone else, but we don't show up for ourselves, so schedule yourself in, show up for yourself and do the work. Be consistent with it because that's where you're going to see the benefits. If you only do it a couple times a week, that's great. But if you really want to see results, you got to be consistent in anything in life. that's how it is. So that's what those are three things. I mean, I'd probably say a lot of other stuff, but those would be the top three.
Wow, Lissa, thank you so much. I loved every single one of those three advice and also all the beautiful answers you gave to those questions I asked. So thank you so much for taking your time for this interview.
You're welcome.
And yeah, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day and talk soon.
All right. Thank you. And yes, everybody go follow Julia. Grab the bundle from the link in her bio or in mine or on YouTube and in the description box below if you're watching over there. Thank you so much, Julia. You are such a sweet soul. It was a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back for another live soon.